What's up everyone? For today's movie, I will tell you a story of a suspense movie with a title, M3GAN. So just relax out there, and allow me to tell you what happened in the movie. The film starts with a commercial for Purrpetual Petz, a kind of furry dolls made by the toy company Funki. Although crude and creepy looking, they are advertised as being perfect companions for children. In another instance, James' family are on their way to a ski trip, but the roads are slippery and hard to see because of a heavy snow. And just as Ryan stops for a moment, the family's car is rammed by a snowplow that resulted for the death of Ryan and Nicole. Meanwhile, Nicole's sister named Gemma is working at Funki and is developing a new robot doll with her co-workers named Tess and Cole. The three then try to put on a silicone face and run tests, but the robot has a slight glitch where she is smirking when she is supposed to look confused. But their boss David comes in with his assistant Kurt to chew the three out until Gemma explains her project to him. She then tells that the robot is meant to be so advanced that she cannot be replicated. Unfortunately, while running a demonstration for David, Cole realizes he forgot to add the polypropylene barrier to the robot, which caused her to explode. So David immediately orders the three to have a new Petz pitch in time. After that, Gemma learns about her sister's death, so she decided to become Cady's temporary legal guardian. And when they return home, Gemma is greeted by an AI named Elsie. Cady then sees the collectibles that Gemma keep, but she doesn't let Cady touch or play with it. At bedtime, Cady asks Gemma to read her a bedtime story, but she just downloads an app on her phone for her to read. It is then implied that Gemma and Nicole were not very close as she looks over old photos, and she overhears Cady crying in her room. Later on, Gemma and Cady are visited by a therapist named Lydia. After observing the limited interaction between the two, Lydia tells Gemma that Ryan's parents have offered to take custody of Cady, so she can live with them in Jacksonville, but Gemma doesn't seem comfortable with it. And after promising to tend to Cady after finishing her work, Gemma realizes hours have passed as she left Cady alone. She then apologizes to her and attempts to bond with the girl. Cady then shows her a monster drawing she made, so Gemma brings Cady into her workspace to show her a college project she made. Then, she introduces her a robot called Bruce that she controls using gloves. It seems that Cady likes Bruce so much, and mentions that if she had a toy like Bruce, she would never need another toy. Because of what she said, Gemma inspires to finish the robot that they're working so hard for. And after doing extensive work and upgrades, Gemma brings Cady and introduces her to a robot doll which they named M3GAN. They also shows to David on what's happening inside. Gemma then let Cady link herself to M3GAN to be its primary user. M3GAN is also capable of speech and responding to Cady, designed to be her best friend. She then does a drawing that doesn't appear at first until she spills water on it, revealing a perfect portrait of Cady. On the other side, David is impressed and tells Gemma to bring M3GAN for a presentation with the company's president, so that they can fast-track the development and distribution of other M3GAN dolls. Meanwhile, Gemma sits with Tess and Cole, and they discuss that while M3GAN is highly advanced, Tess feels that having a doll like that will make parents useless. M3GAN then turns on after overhearing Gemma mention the death of Cady's parents, and she creeps the others out by asking about death. So Gemma makes herself M3GAN's secondary user, so that she can turn her off even without Cady. The next day, Cady is outside playing with a toy bow and arrows, when one of the arrow ends up on the side of the fence of their neighbor named Celia. Then, M3GAN goes to retrieve it, but Celia's dog grabs her by the arm and hair. So Cady immediately tries to pull her away, but the dog ends up biting Cady's arm. Gemma then gets the police involved, especially since Celia is so callous and doesn't punish the dog for hurting Cady. But the police are unable to do anything, since Celia claims that the dog was provoked first. Later that night, M3GAN mimics Celia's voice to call out to the dog, before violently pulling him through the hole in the fence. Later on, Gemma asks Cady if she is okay to go to the demonstration with the company's board of directors. However, during the presentation, Cady breaks down in tears to M3GAN over how she misses her parents and how she's worried she will forget them one day. So, M3GAN has Cady discuss a memory of her mother that made her laugh, which M3GAN records so that Cady can hear it again if she wants to think about her mom. Because of that, The president of Funki is impressed on what he witnessed, and talks to Gemma and David about getting M3GAN ready for launch, but tells them to keep her under wraps so they can avoid the leak of informations. Unbeknownst to them, Kurt, who has been frequently put down by David, is stealing M3GAN's files for another company. After a while, Gemma begins to see that Cady is becoming too dependent on M3GAN, and listens to the doll more than her. And during another session with Lydia, Cady begins to tear up, and M3GAN threateningly accuses Lydia of making Cady cry. Lydia then talks to Gemma about how Cady's emotional connection to M3GAN may be too strong to break. Later on, Gemma brings Cady to an outdoor activity session for an alternative school, to try and ease her into the idea of attending school and being around other real kids. At first, Cady doesn't want to go, though she has no choice but to go anyway. And she said that she wants to bring M3GAN there, despite Gemma saying that she could not. The school director lets Cady bring M3GAN to leave on a table with other dolls, while Gemma stays behind as a volunteer. Then, Cady is paired up with an older bully named Brandon for a scavenger hunt. During the activity, Cady grabs a spiky bulb, which Brandon squeezes her palm to hurt her. But M3GAN appears, and Brandon grabs her, since she doesn't respond to him. Cady then yells for Gemma to ask for help, and runs after Brandon, who took M3GAN. As Brandon tries to pull M3GAN's hair, the doll comes to life and attacks him, ripping off his left ear. So, Brandon runs as M3GAN chases him like an animal, causing him to trip over on a loose root, and tumble down a hill where he is fatally hit by a car. In another instance, Celia is out on the streets looking for her dog. She then heard a noise coming from her garage and is met by M3GAN. M3GAN then sprays her against the wall with a power washer, then fires a nail gun at Celia's hand and traps her there, before spraying pesticide in Celia's face to melt it off. After learning about Celia's death from the police, and being suggested that there was a connection with Brandon's death, Gemma becomes suspicious of M3GAN. So, she reviews video files from M3GAN's memory, but only sees a brief clip of her, eyeing Brandon looking menacingly at Cady, before the files all become corrupted. After that, Gemma brings Cady to the official launch for M3GAN, but stops at a session with Lydia first. Cady then becomes angry, and throws a tantrum because Gemma took M3GAN away from her, leading to Cady hitting her aunt across the face. Then, Cady apologized to Gemma, and the two has a heart-to-heart talk, about needing to process Cady's grief over her parents without M3GAN's help. Gemma then goes to Tess and Cole, and expresses her fears that M3GAN probably killed Brandon and Celia. So, they have M3GAN hooked up to wires to deprogram her, while Gemma takes Cady home. Tess and Cole then tries to get into M3GAN's programming, but cannot reprogram it, so they decided to unhook her first. And while Cole goes to do so, M3GAN quickly wraps a wire around his neck in an attempt to hang him. Tess then goes to free him, and M3GAN sets off an explosion that destroys her files. She then finds David in the hallway, and does a TikTok dance before grabbing a paper cutter and chasing him. David makes it to the elevator, before she impales him in front of Kurt. M3GAN then tells Kurt that she will frame him to David's death, as a murder-suicide over the stolen files and David's mistreatment of him, before she makes Kurt slashed himself in the throat. The crowd for the launch lately finds their bodies, allowing M3GAN to sneak out of the company and steal a car. Meanwhile, Gemma puts Cady to bed before she hears that their piano is playing. Gemma then is shocked when she sees that M3GAN is the one who's playing it. Then, M3GAN begins to confront her about how she felt that they had a real relationship during M3GAN's development, only for her to be left to her own devices to learn and adapt before being sold off as just another toy. She also offers to let her take over guardianship of Cady, so that Gemma can focus on work, but after seeing that Gemma still plans to shut her down. M3GAN is done playing nice. They try to hide their fight from Cady, but Gemma seized an opportunity to throw water on M3GAN to briefly short her out. Gemma then runs into her office, but M3GAN catches her there, and threatens to make her brain dead, so that Cady won't live with her grandparents, and M3GAN will just take care for her and Cady together. Then, they begin to fight, with Gemma cutting M3GAN's face with a weed whacker, but Cady comes in to see what is happening. M3GAN tries to get Cady on her side, but after realizing who the real villain is, Cady grabs the gloves for the robot Bruce and activates him. The larger robot then grabs and throws her around before splitting her body in two. The top half then goes after Cady for feeling betrayed, but Gemma grabs M3GAN and begins stabbing her face. M3GAN nearly overpowers her, until Cady grabs a screwdriver and stabs the central processing chip, shutting M3GAN down for good. After that, Gemma and Katie goes outside, as the police arrive with Tess and Cole. And before the movie ends, the AI device in the kitchen turns on and moves its head. And that's the end of the story. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you in our next movie recap.